Hello everyone, my name is
Anna,
Julia,
Linda,
Marieva,
Madalena,
Lazar.
and we are DYouth.
Are you high? Are you low? Hang on there, you aren't alone. Here we come, here we go, the youth around the globe.
DYouth welcomes you to the new episode of the Diabetes Daily Podcast. Enjoy! Welcome. Please tell me something about yourself.
Hi, I'm Fredrik de Bong. I'm a Swede living in Vienna, Austria. This is where you go when you get old. It's really a laid-back little city. I have had diabetes since I was 4. That was 1984. I was diagnosed, so 40 years, give or take. Back then, we only had urine test strips as we started out. Now it's CGMs and closed loops and stuff. A lot has happened since back then. We should all be very happy and grateful, man. I promise you. What else can I tell you? I have 3 children. I love running in the mountains. I love free diving. I love traveling. And I've worked in diabetes now for about 20 years. I'm a medical computer scientist by training and software engineer background. Nowadays, compliance, risk management. I've built 5 companies in my career, and I love being part of the diabetes community.
How was your diagnosis? How do you feel about it now, and how far did this change?
All right, so when I was diagnosed back in the olden days, back in 1984, I remember not much because, dude, I was 4, right? Now, I've heard stories, and you know what happens? When something's way back, you kind of start believing stories you make up. So I don't know if it's really true anymore, but rumor has it, at least in my strange imagination, I know that it was tricky to diagnose back then. That I know. I know that I had diabetes for around 6 months. I lost a third of my body weight. Peeing in bed, as one does. Well, at least I did. And losing weight, eating like a horse a day at least, and didn't work. Body weight just kept slowing off, and I was not doing well. Our GP back then wasn't able to diagnose me, and because diabetes type 1 is not really something top of mind, not even nowadays. So it took a while, right? Now we come to the rumor part, right? The thing I started believing, I don't know if it's true, was that I know I was on a boat. That I know. That's fact. I was out on a boat together with my grandfather. And he'd brought beer for himself, lemonade for me, and water for us. And we were going to be out all day. And we cast off and tuck around in the Swedish archipelago, Stockholm archipelago. And I finished the lemonade, I finished the water, and I sneak a beer from him because I was so thirsty. That when he was a doctor, and that's when something reminded him of something. And it's diabetes. Now we come to the rumor part. I think he actually did the old Egyptian style and tasted my pee. I don't know if it's true. It's just disgusting. I think my strange mind made it up through the years. I don't know. But that's when I was diagnosed. They took me to the hospital, and diagnosis was correct. And then I spent a month or 2 in the hospital. Yeah, I had a great time. Because you know what? In my room at the hospital was another guy called Fredrik. And it turns out we're cousins. And both diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the same time. We had a great time. Nowadays, he's a diabetologist, so seems to run in the family to stick to it.
What scared you the most at first with your diabetes?
Okay, what scared me the most? You remember it was 40 years ago, right? That's a long time. And Another true story, though, this one I know. I ran away from the hospital on the first, second, third day, something like that. I ran off, and they found me in the subway trying to get out of there because I was scared of needles. That's what scared me back then. All this talk about HbA1c and complications and stuff, that was way over my head. I was 4, right? But needles, they were scary.
What barriers do you feel diabetes has created in your life?
So barriers are a thing, sure, but some of them are self-imposed. Many of them are, actually, because if you've got decent control, in some countries you can also become a pilot. I can't, though, because I live in Austria, so that's actually a proper barrier. The rest, like, I grew up in Sweden, and then I moved to Austria. If someone blocks me from doing something which is not against the law, they're committing a crime, right? So for me, it's mainly self-imposed barriers, right? Except being a pilot, and that honestly sucks. I'd love that. But I have a diving license, I have driver's license, I have education, I have traveled to nearly 100 countries. I've had a very strange career. I have children, there are absolutely barriers, but not in my case, really, except for the pilot thing. But it wasn't always that way. Oh, no. I think I, like many of us, kind of abused my diabetes a bit and got out of gym class when I didn't want to, have to, I have a hypo, I can't do the math test, whatever, right? Like kids do, right? Use whatever we're given. Through that, maybe I had some self-imposed barriers where I let myself be held back when I was young. But there are day-to-day stuff. There's day-to-day stuff too, right? If I've gotten a kernel of wisdom through the years, just a little bit more wise than I was when I was 4. And one of these kernels of wisdom is, don't do sports after having eaten when you have a lot of insulin in your body, right? So that's holding me back right now, honestly. Like, go for a walk after lunch? Yeah, sure. If you didn't plan it, then I have to eat like a frigging kilo of gummy candies. Now, I love gummy candies. I have no worries. But honestly, 500 grams of Haribo does not make me a happy kid. It gets kind of disgusting after a while. So that's holding me back at the moment. I guess that's it. Oh yeah, and the pilot thing.
Do you have a moment or history of your diabetes that you would like to share?
Okay, I'll share 2 stories today. One of them was on Gili Trawangan. That's in Indonesia. It's next to an island called Lombok. And what do you do on Gili Trawangan? You have a beautiful time. The Gilis are 3 beautiful islands, no cars, there's no electricity, no sweet water. Everything has to be shipped in. So yeah, it's a very simple life there. It's beautiful. The snorkeling, the diving, it's lovely. And my wife was pregnant with her first child. Had a beautiful time. But the fridge in our room, where I wanted to keep my insulin, was so loud. It was like keeping us awake at night. It was like a freaking generator engine in our room. So we pulled the plug, and since it was like 40, 50 degrees, whatever, it was hot at least. I took my insulin over to the reception at this simple little hotel and asked them, hey, could you put this in a fridge in the kitchen? Yes, sir. And not the freezer. If that insulin freezes, because we were on the road for 6 weeks, if that insulin freezes, it's going to be trouble. Yes, sir. Great. 3 days later, I come to get new basal insulin for my pen, and hello, sir. Hi, I need my insulin. Yes, of course, sir. Open the fridge right next to the reception. Told them kitchen, right? So it's, and they open the freezer, and they take out a 5 centimeter thick block of ice with all my insulin inside of it. I can't get it out, sir. Okay, this is what happened. I asked you not freezer and keep it cool, but not, well, we don't have electricity at night. Okay, so we put it in the freezer to keep it cool over the night, and then we forgot about it. Okay, so they tried to mind safety and stuff, but it just didn't work. 5 centimeter thick block of ice around me. So I went to the island doctor, a very short, super fun man. We went to an island called Lombok, like 1.5 hours by boat from there, and went to 2 pharmacies until we found some insulin, and they had an old kind of insulin, but at least it was insulin. So worked out in the end. So back when I was around 20, me and a friend used to go down to the French Alps by bus from Sweden. That's 36 hours on bus, but it was worth it because French Alps, skiing, lovely. And we used to stay at youth hostels because we were 20, right? And at this youth hostel where you also got to borrow equipment and gear, you had a guide to ski with you all day. It was great. It was fantastic. And you stayed in bunk beds, right? In this youth hostel. 6 people, 8 people to a room, and yeah. But what happens if you go skiing 9 hours every day? And then you go out drinking until 2 a.m. And then you go to bed. Well, that's, unless you adjust basal and stuff, that's when bad things happen. I know a few people, sisters and brothers of ours, who have passed away due to exactly this. Exercise, not adjusting, hypoglycemic episode, alcohol in the blood. Body is not able to save itself. So watch out. Well, I had a hypo at night, a deep one. So cramps, shaking, faint. I was gone, right? And the whole bed started like vibrating. And my friend Ludde, my brother from another mother, he'd been around before. So he took some dextrose and climbed up there and sat on top of me and fed me glucose tablets. And he came to, and he climbed down, and then the day after we went skiing as usual. But at breakfast table, it's very quiet. You eat with your room. So we sat down there and it was very quiet. Usually it was like everyone was excited and stuff. And after a while, Ludde, my buddy, asks, so guys, what's going on? And they look at us and say, well, guys, we this night it was kind of disturbing because it's fine that you want to make love at night, but could you please turn the lights off, not keep the lights on at least? Yeah. So that's stuff that hypos can also land you. We had so much fun about that story. So, okay, a third story. You know how diabetes sucks? It does. Let's be honest. It's not as if it's a walk in the park or not taking up time and no, you don't have any trouble, right? I'd rather get rid of this thing. But it doesn't work like that, does it? I tried. When I was 20, I stopped diabetes. I just quit. I stopped testing. and stopped caring. So I still shot my basal, and I still had my pen with me and still injected. But I injected 2 units for everything, be it having a pizza or having a beer or having an apple. Like, didn't matter, just 2 units, 2 units, 2 units, and never tested. Now, HbA1c, right? That's when I stopped believing in HbA1c, because my HbA1c during this time was 7.2. You see, averages. Do you know what an average is? Take the thing in the middle, but you get rid of what the actual middle is. That's an average. Well, let's not go into details here, but the average between daily super high values and severe hypoglycemic episodes where you faint on a weekly basis, more or less. That was 5 years of my life. And my HbA1c was 7.3 or something. Yeah. So that sucked in hindsight. Back then, I didn't care. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why my wife, my mother of 3 of our children, right? Why she stuck with me? Because we've been together for 20 years, right? So she was part of that. And she saved my butt time and time again. So did my friends. Crazy, right? But diabetes is a burden. It's a burden on your soul. It is. And I'm so lucky to sit here without any complications and any trouble, really. Except for, complaining a bit about activity after meal when you have bolus in, right? Whatever. There are bigger problems. But how I got out of that was kind of special, I think. Because I studied medical computer science at the university, and I also studied game design. And I also studied psychology, because in Austria, if you're inscribed at the university, you can do whatever you want, which is kind of cool. And there I had this one course about game design and about how game mechanics or games can make you cry and laugh, right? Make you feel proud. So what if, I thought to myself, because now I was at the end of my diabetes burnout, what if I use this to get out and master this thing again? And so I started building little games in my head, like if I test once today, then I can have dessert. Otherwise, I won't give myself dessert. And by using those little tricks to trick my brain into activating that what I do in diabetes is good, through that I came out of it. And through that, I have changed my whole attitude regarding my own diabetes, at least. And I think that the psychological burden and what positive psychology can achieve for us who live with this chronic condition is fantastic. It's mind-changing and, for at least me, world-changing. So I hope it helps.
What is mySugr and how it was a stepping stone for what are you doing now?
Right, so you remember I told you about my time with diabetes burnout, studying medical computer science, psychology, game design, a lot of different things. That's also what led to mySugr. I had this research project at the university. I worked on it for 3 years, also in the diabetes space, and learned a lot about regulations and how do you build medical device software and stuff. And that was my field, right? But I wasn't able to build a company around it. I wanted to, though. And then one day a friend of mine reaches out, Gerald, and he says to me that, hey, a friend of mine, Frank, also has diabetes, and we want to build something in this field. Smartphones were new. We want to build an app around it. And I had ideas, man. because now I'd just had that game design course I mentioned. And so we met up over coffee. That 30-minute introduction turned into hours, and then into 10, 12 years together. Because the idea was, sure, smartphones, everyone's going to have them. Back then, this was 2008 or something, so this was fairly new. Smartphones, everyone is going to have them, it's our belief. And we can build a really good diabetes management thing, but we build it like an app, like a modern app, like not looking clinical, medical. It's going to be different, because in the end, just having your data is not going to help. Making use of your data is going to help, and changing the psychology around your diabetes. That's the mission, to make diabetes suck less for people. And that's what we did. We built up a whole diabetes management app on 2 platforms and Web 2, and released it into the wild. And now over 4 million patients are using this system. And it's the world's biggest diabetes management app. And it's reimbursed in a few countries, meaning insurance pays for it. It's integrated with a bunch of devices, and it calculates you. Yeah, it does a lot, right? That was kind of cool. And was honestly my kind of whole passion and identity for a decade. While there, I worked on so many things. Oh, one more fun little thing. It changed the app, and the style of it changed things for a lot of people, and for a few people, enormously much. As far as I know now, 4 people have tattooed the mySugr monster logo on their forearms. That's how much it meant to them. And that was just crazy, like mind-blowing to, in some way, have been part of that, right? Kind of cool. Friggin' amazing, to be honest. Now, I think around 150 people work at mySugr nowadays, because the company was then bought by another big company called Roche. Roche Diagnostics bought mySugr, and it's now part of that organization. Still monsters all over the place, humor, laughing, and love. That's what went into that. So there I led a bunch of things. Medical risk management. I led many parts of the compliance, which means, like, you can't just build an app and say it's a medical device and give it to people, right? You can't just calculate what people should inject like that and release it. Then you go to jail. So we have something beautiful called regulations, which means that I have strange hair today, sorry. But the regulations, they're a thing. They say that unless you've taken care of building this in a safe and good way to have high quality, you can't release it. And it has to be registered and approved by the authorities. That makes sense. Otherwise, anyone could do snake oil, if you know the term. Anyone could, like my son, my 17-year-old son, can program since he was 12. He'd be able to put something out, whatever, right? But if it's in medicine, people can actually die. And so we have regulations for that. Makes sense. And if you take that to heart as a company, and it becomes a tool to help you as a company and also your people that you work with. Anyway, I kind of started liking that field. Strange, right? But I was also head of research and development and a bunch of other things. So, okay. When you get, let's switch to what happened after mySugr, because that was a big part of my life, right? And probably why you asked me to come on here. But I learned a few more things while there. When insurance starts paying for things, you have to look into stuff called health economics. how does society, how does an insurance decide that, yes, this is correct? Closed loop is going to be not just approved, but also paid for by the NHS in the UK, let's say, just as a current example, because now closed loop systems are going to be deployed all over the UK if you want one, which is an amazing feat. Kudos to everyone involved who made that happen. That's mind-blowing. Thank you. So why does it get reimbursed, and why will it be serviced? Because the outcomes are good enough and the cost of it is low enough that it makes sense. That's health economics, more or less. And researching that field, I found this one little paper which said that if people have to pay for access to heart medications, then nearly 30% won't cash the prescription, won't hand in the prescription and get their meds. 30% just because of $10 in the US. That's staggering, right? And turns out people die due to this. Turns out the mortality rate, which means how many people die, more or less, give or take, whatever. Too many details, I'm sorry. Rises by 24% due to people having to pay $10 for access to heart medication. $10. And we spend $8 trillion a year on medication and therapy and whatnot. 8 trillion. And if $10 has that effect, then patients shouldn't have to pay if it can be avoided, right? So I formed a new company together with a friend, and we built a bank, because one does, right? A bank integrated with insurances, 140 of them in Germany, and getting rid of patients having to pay for at the pharmacy, getting rid of patients having to pay for access to glucose test strips and whatnot. And now we're rolling that out globally. So the goal there is not only diabetes, but the whole of the healthcare system. Yeah, so that I did too, but then it became kind of a financial services company, and my heart is in diabetes. I can come up with so many bad jokes there, but it's not my pancreas, right? That bastard gave up. It's my heart that is in diabetes, and the things I've experienced in this field and seen in this field, just, yeah. This is where my heart is. So I've come back into this field now, and I work as a chief compliance officer, caring about the regulations of an AI company focused on diabetes care. So we deploy, build algorithms that can run on pumps that achieve over 90% time in range, hands off. I invested in a company and helped them build up how we come to market a glucose sensor using microneedles out of the UK. Whole thing there is it's going to be cheaper than blood glucose testing, this CGM sensor. So hopefully we can replace blood glucose testing for everyone. And I started researching in 15 different fields. And yeah, so I'm back in diabetes now, and it feels like home, not just because, I have it, but because the people that work in this field, big hearts and big minds, man. Big hearts and big minds.
What was your personal power secret to keep on and fight?
All right. Personal secret. I'm actually an alien. I'm from Beetlejuice. And not really, no. I am from Earth, I promise. Don't sue me now. But on a personal level, like regarding my own diabetes, I rebuilt it to be something more positive. Like when I go for a run, and I used to do a lot of running, like 2 half marathons a week. Then it was also an additional layer of sport, of game, right? To see how my glucose also behaved. Could I tune it? Could I just do a straight line, no bumps, no dips during a 20-kilometer run. I rebuilt my diabetes to become more like a challenge, right? I think that helps. Of course, I'm not perfect. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's so much affecting us, but I was able to rebuild it for me in that way. And when it comes to diabetes as a work, a job, so to speak, I don't know if I would call it a job, something I can work on and make the world better, right? That's not a job. That's a passion. I know. But here's three things. I made friends for life in this field, in this group. Like, there are so many extremely passionate, smart people. That's what pulls me back, at least. But also the intellectual puzzle. Diabetes, if you get deep into it and start looking at cell interactions and how hormones work and how insulin is built up and carrying proteins and whatnot, right? Pharmacokinetic, it's so much math and psychology and everything just jumbled up in this strange ball. So it's like a huge puzzle. So if you like an intellectual challenge, there you go. And the third, I'm a selfish prick, so I want to solve my own problem, I guess.
What is your dream for the future of diabetes?
Okay. I rebuilt diabetes to be more positive for me, but honestly, get me out of here, right? Cure me, please, because I could have so much more fun and maybe become a pilot. Who knows? So that would be fantastic. But I've learned through the years, 40 years with this disease, the cure is around the corner, they said at the start. It's going to take a while. Yeah. So in the meantime, I believe we are now approaching peak diabetes where I live. Like, I have sensors, I have pumps, I have fast insulins. Yes, everything can be improved, but dude, like the AI company I work with now, 120 in Switzerland, we achieve over 90, let's see, in simulations, we achieve over 90% time in range, which means diabetes is kind of gone, right? Well, not really, and yeah, we can cut some hairs and whatnot, right? And this is just simulation, but we'll get it there. 90%. Can you imagine, right? It's better than our friends who don't have diabetes, right? Okay, if we can get there, that would be fab. Okay, so we get to peak diabetes. The next stage is absolutely access. I'm a medical computer scientist who teach MBAs. I teach postdocs in diabetology about technology and its impact. I do research. And I live in Austria where access is free, right? But I also work with a hospital in Bangladesh, a little country you may never have heard of. 170 million people live there. And in the capital of Dhaka, 20 million people live. It's crazy. It's twice the size of Austria, that capital alone. And it's tiny geographically. It's bonkers, right? So I work with this hospital in Dhaka, and that's closer to reality than Austria. If you look at the world population, my reality is not real, right? Normal is not having free access to everything and sitting on peak diabetes tech, right? So the next hurdle I think we must address is access. How do we make it that this technology gets cheaper, gets deployable, gets easy to use? How can we serve people who, A, live in other parts of the world, B, maybe lack my form of education and my skills and understanding? How can we serve people who are underserved and see to it that our sisters and brothers there also can live their lives without being worried? I think that's going to be the next piece of the puzzle. And then hopefully they cure us, and all we've done professionally will be for naught. And that's fine.
What message would you like to leave? What is your conclusion?
If I summarize a bit what I believe maybe you can take away is that the barriers are not always really there. Maybe your barriers. You can do most things. If you're not as fortunate as me, though, those barriers need removal. You don't have access to education, support, medication, devices, and whatnot. That needs addressing. I've addressed parts of these problems I've experienced in my way, using technology and a lot of hard work, and I don't think I'm the smartest guy on the block. So those barriers, be it access or yourself, can be worked on. And we're worth it. We are worth it. And the people that work on this are amazing. We'll make friends for life. So join the dark side. We have carb-free cookies.
Are you high? Are you low? Hang on there, you aren't alone. Here we come, here we go, the youth around the globe.
DYouth thanks you for receiving this episode of Diabetes Daily. We hope you like it. Thank you for your support. If you feel like sharing your own story, check out our show notes on how you can do so. Until next week, we wish you good blood sugar.